meeting of the Public Services Committee, and only thing on the agenda is the Chapter 25 garbage litter lot maintenance ordinance, updating it. Um, I think everybody, I don't know if you have the proposed ordinance, you should. And then also I went ahead to try to expedite things. I went ahead and printed off and gave everybody the ordinance as it is. So with that being said, I know that just to kind of go ahead and get this out there, and I'm just gonna run straight through. I'm not sure, Ms. Calloway, if you were copied on the Downtown Alliance email. But just to kind of put this out there so that we don't have to go in discussions over and over. And this time I do have a gavel. And but just quickly, just some concerns from the Downtown Alliance, section 25.2, definitions, subparagraph, qualified business enterprises. They're saying the language should be worded such that all small businesses in downtown area receive daily garbage collection as they do currently. So their ask of us is to make sure that, I guess, that maintains. And I don't know, I can let you opine in a minute about what, if that was purposeful or if that was just if that was just something that wasn't considered, I guess.
So the intent of so I think there's two pieces of this. The intent for the qualified business, what do we call it? Enterprise was to be picking businesses up that have, I have to look at the specifics that we wrote, but drink and food and all those things in there. Currently, there are some additional businesses that over time we've been picking up for. And so the intent is that we are not going to add a business that is not a qualified business, but we're not going to take service away from the ones that we have been giving service to right now.
Okay, so quote unquote, probably grandfather and most of them in that are as is, but not taking any new ones on the roll, I guess is what.
Correct.
Okay. Then section 25.8, subparagraph C3, language should be worded such that business may mark the exterior of the cart, not just the inside of the lid. Just a suggestion from them or an ask from them was, while I think that all of our brown carts are very beautiful, they having to lift the lid to go out and find your cart. They feel that it provides some difficulty for their employees to try to track carts down. And I think kind of what they're saying is while the carts don't have legs, they tend to end up different places. And a lot of times they got to go out and find them. And what they're looking for is just trying to find the carts more easily. So maybe, maybe a correction on that could be you could do the back of the cart by the handle or something. That's just me throwing something out there. While I do love our beautiful brown carts, I can see where that kind of would be a issue for them. Section 25.8 and 9, downtown business districts and commercial outside of downtown business districts. Language should be modified so that the dumpster regulations in the UDC code are reiterated in the section in section 25.8. And I did pull, I think there's just some cross language maybe around like times related to collection. I think you're good.
That's a decision that y'all have to make.
Okay.
So in what we heard when we presented this originally in August was that some city councilors wanted it to be at nighttime only and some wanted it to be daytime only.
Okay.
Sorry. What we heard when we presented this in August was that some councilors, really dependent upon where your residential is, wanted carts picked up in the morning or during daylight or business hours. But for others, that's a challenge to pick up during business hours because of traffic.
Cars everywhere, yeah.
Exactly. So I think we left the language as is. That's a decision I believe the council really should make if you want it to be one or the other.
Okay. And that would be yes, sir.
What that item is really addressing is regulations containing about dumpster surrounds and where they can be and that kind of thing. Yeah.
25, 8 and 9, I'm sorry. And then I think the language should be modified so that the dumpster regulations in the DDD code are
The
reiterated.
suggestion was that the,
I'm gonna make you a copy of this, or I'll get to it.
So you're just asking us to reiterate this, to say it again, or to make sure that it's.
the idea being for a business person to just go into one section to look at what their garbage regulations are.
Yeah,
It's
we
a little
talked about
odd
that.
it's
Yeah.
in the
And then, yeah, we could match it up with the UDC code. And then the final is that 2511 vehicles hauling trash, referring to private haulers, aligned with the regulation, noise in residential districts. So I think it's just, that's just dealing with when the private haulers, I guess, are allowed to operate.
I think that's what I was thinking.
That's probably what, yeah.
Well, there was
and
apparently
Carol-
some question, I don't know that it had to do with downtown. There was a question that Lisa had sent out to us about business collection. And I asked her, well, what neighborhood is complaining and where's the business? And she said she didn't know.
I got it.
Do you know where that was?
This thing's flashing. It's driving me crazy.
Commercial businesses abutting residential neighborhoods. Claim from residential neighborhoods that dumpsters are being emptied as early as 4 and 5 a.m.
Well, she was asking if we had changed that in this. And I said, as far as I know, no, that hadn't been changed. But I was wondering where these businesses were that were emptying their dumpsters at 4 a.m. in the morning, because that is not something that we allow. We set those back some time ago. So it was.
I think it might be,
Too early.
might have been like some, because I've seen early in the morning some of the dumpsters or the trash getting dumped at shopping centers.
Yeah.
So I think that might be.
Well, if they don't back up to residential, it's probably okay. But those that back up to residential, it was like the late at night and then the early morning. Those are the issues for people who back up to commercial businesses and the dumpsters, because they would bang them down on the ground. And I think we took care of those with some different dumpsters and pads and stuff, and that helps. But still, they would bang them down. And, all the folks who live next door were waking up complaining about it.
So currently, the regulation, as we've written it, on page 10E, at the top of the page, says that no one should operate its work, no truck or vehicle in the vicinity for hire shall operate or carry on its work between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. of each day in the bounded area west of Broad, which apparently is the map that Elizabeth has handed out. So if y'all want to reverse that or change that, I believe the rationale, and again, this happened way before me, but I believe the rationale was more about traffic and ability for a dumpster to be emptied during these times. So I think it is entirely up to y'all or Downtown Mobile Alliance, based on their suggestion, to pick a different time. But again, when we brought this up in August, I want to say that Councilman Daves was the first one to say, "Nuh-uh, I don't want it I don't want it during the day. I only want it during the day. I don't want it at night." I don't remember, but so I think that's the challenge, and I think it's entirely up to y'all if you want two different areas in here to do it differently in the downtown area than the rest of the community. If you want other language, just let us know.
It may be different areas need different timing, because the idea that the dumpsters should not be, the company should not come to collect the garbage in dumpsters until certain times of the morning or not certain times in the evening. We actually, that's kind of the Reggie Copeland law, because the commercial properties were backing up to residences and they were coming at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock. And they would, once they finished dumping the trash, and they would set those dumpsters down and it would bang and clang and make all kinds of noise. And, people were complaining. And then the same thing for about early morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, same sort of issue. So we had to change the times, but these were the businesses that back up to residential areas. You know, if you're,
Citywide, right?
it wasn't, I don't know if it was citywide or not. I really can't remember because what's happening downtown is a little bit different than, what we were experiencing in the West. And, really what I'm talking about was just the shopping center areas that back up to residential. If you've got a shopping center that's out in the middle of Airport Boulevard and there are no residences around, it's, not a big deal. But if they, run in close to residence, that's when we were, getting the
Yeah, I
complaints.
think point four, all we were trying to point out is that there are two ordinances on the books that have two different zones that conflict. And you might, while you're doing all this work, you might want to make them, I think this is in the garbage and this is in the noise. And they both kind of manage the same issue. So you might want to, maybe want to tone this down. This is from 1965, it looks like. If you look at the
Downtown
deep
district.
in the code, you might want to crunch that down low because this is very residential now.
Mhm, yeah. Yeah, it's changed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
there is two distinct different areas. There apparently is some overlapping issues that need to be addressed in downtown. But Councilwoman Gregory's point and Councilmember Dave's and also mine, I think if we add just in section 25-9, commercial outside of downtown business district, just add the language that we find in 25-11, item E, and just change the hours on it, for which it says no truck or other vehicle used in the business of collecting and hauling trash, garbage, and refuse or house shall operate or carry on its work between the hours of the nighttime hours instead of the daytime hours of each day in the year, and just anywhere outside of the bounded area. Put that section
Yeah.
E part, the opposite of E in section 25-9. That resolves that issue.
So would you be specific which hours you think would be smart to say that? Do you-
I think it should match the noise ordinance, and just like it should in downtown Mobile. Noise ordinance is what, 7 a.m. to 7 p. or something like that. We'll find out what that is, and maybe this other one is 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So shall not be from 7 a.m. I'm sorry. They can't operate in the nighttime hours, which is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Maybe it's 10. 10's kind of late, but yeah, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
So, yeah.
So you're not clanging and banging after 10 p.m. or before 7 a.m.
So for commercial, yes to 7 PM to 7 AM. For downtown, no to 7
Yes,
PM to 7 AM.
that's exactly. Well, no, how you have downtown written right now.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, downtown right now as written, my understanding is correct. What the desire is, that they want them operating at night, not during the day.
What is the current?
Downtown
Time.
currently says no operation between 8 and 6.
That's right. They want it all at night.
They want it all.
Yep, we want the opposite for the remaining parts of the city. No clanging and banging at night, yet operating in these wide open spaces during the day. And then to address this, this delineation where that is in downtown, in this downtown section. Josh, Elizabeth, can you help me understand what you explained to Councilman Woods about these two different areas? There's an area included as noise protection and an area excluded from noise protection.
Okay, so this area is what's in the old and proposed garbage ordinance that would regulate when private haulers can operate in the downtown area, the larger area.
Okay?
My suggestion is that be a little bit narrowed down because a lot of these edge areas are much more residential now than they were in 1965.
Oh, so you don't want them to be clanging and banging at night over there?
Correct. This is what's in the noise ordinance as a special zone where things can happen, where collection can happen downtown.
All right, so you're just saying
Right.
change the description from the area bounded on the west by Broad Street to the area bounded on the west by whatever that street is.
Some specific language would be super helpful.
Or make, them the same or, you know.
Yes. If you wouldn't mind, just maybe shooting us an email with, some specific boundaries, and then, we can circulate that around and bring that and work with y'all and bring that back.
But just to make sure I understand it, what the Downtown Mobile Alliance, Downtown Alliance, is suggesting it that out here
They're
in,
purely suggesting that there not be conflict between two ordinances that basically regulate the same thing, because then that makes
Noise.
it hard to regulate.
okay, so in order to resolve that, you're requesting that this area that's shaded in blue be treated with regard to this garbage and trash ordinance for noise-related issues, be treated the same as the remaining parts of the city, as I suggested, which is operation during the day, not operation at night.
So
I don't know.
could we
Okay.
just
Say
say,
the rest of the city.
could we just say, garbage and trash hours in the downtown business district will match the noise ordinance regulation and,
For private haulers.
yes, would that be an acceptable?
The other thing that
Y'all putting a map.
Y'all may wanna-
In the ordinance, it does not.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That section, Tina, that you're referring to in the noise is called noise in residential districts. So I don't know, and I have a copy of that if you'd like it.
Yeah, we probably need that, just to go back and look at the time, that we agreed to on that as well.
I didn't study the rest of the city, so
Councilman Woods,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't, I don't.
This is what I put on community code as noise in residential districts. The DDD code says that all, because that references R1, R2, R3, there's no R in downtown. The DDD code, when it's adopted, says that all districts in the DDD code don't have residential by right. This ordinance pertains. So, but I don't know about the rest of the city.
I think we're going to-
I don't get bogged down in that. So I don't want to get bogged down.
I think we'll take this and, let's look at this, over the course of the next couple of days. Yeah, we'll definitely take that in consideration.
Councilman Woods.
All right, next up, so I think that addresses what Mr. Carroll had with, his concerns with downtown. Did y'all have any other concerns?
Yeah, well, I wanted to speak on, the things that Councilman Daves raised. And that was for these habitual offenders of litter, say, or where they're really haven't had much of an enforcement effort or ability to really punish the folks that are just not willing to do what they're supposed to do. And he says, this law means nothing if we're not going to enforce it, which I agree with him. And then we hear that maybe the wording needs to be stronger to support the administration's effort of enforcement by way of putting their business license at risk. And I was, page 14, I think gets at the heart of that. But I don't know that it would satisfy his concerns. It may, but I don't think so. Item F at the top, page 14.
Page 14.
Yeah,
14F.
this deals with offenses.
This one.
Where it says 3 convictions of chapter 25 within a 12-month period for offenses by a business establishment or its agents may result in the suspension or revocation of the business license. Well, that exists today. That doesn't say anything different than what we could today. It may. So I don't know that that provides strong enough language. And I don't know if this would satisfy Mr. Daves, but we control our agenda and we control whether or not somebody's business license is revoked or not. I don't think that's an administrative task that can happen without our approval or a court intervening. But my suggestion is that it should say 3 convictions within a 12-month period by establishment or its agents will or shall result in placing the suspension of the business license on the council agenda for consideration of revocation. So there's an automatic trigger that y'all turn in or y'all say there are 3 convictions of this same offense or similar offense within a 12-month period, it's automatically added to our agenda for consideration of revocation. That may have enough tooth on it where it automatically puts it in the public spotlight for everybody to know that this business is failing to meet their obligations and they're up for revocation of their business license to be, mulled over by the city council, which would be, if you don't want it revoked, you show up down here and you plead your case as to why you're not picking up your litter.
This would be parking lots, I'm guessing.
Yeah. This would be essentially, I don't know where this section applies. I think it applies to more than just commercial businesses. This is under penalties.
It's all.
Yeah. So and I guess that would put more than just businesses, at risk. Well, it'd be a business license. So
If it's business license, yeah.
Yep.
What else you gonna revoke? Could be revoke or suspend, I suppose, rather than just saying automatic revocation.
but I don't know if that satisfies Councilman Dave's total concern, but it's certainly in line with what he said.
If it's residential, you go to municipal court, and municipal court deals with it however they see fit to.
What?
If it's residential, it just.
Yeah, that's right. But this is just a step further and saying we're going to handle it on our end of the house. Like put it in the city council's court, put it in the public view. Anyways, I think that is something to be considered now. I don't know if this is the right ordinance to address this in, but it gets to the scrap tire problem or a tire problem we have. And I think that ADM has some laws on how tires are supposed to be managed, how many you have, outside or whatever. And maybe these businesses are meeting that criteria. I'm not sure. There are a lot of tire operations that have hundreds of tires, used tires, new tires, combination, whatever, that are just stacked up all around their businesses and piled up behind their businesses. And if this is the appropriate ordinance to restrict the number of tires that somebody could have, outside of their business, I want to put it in there and then subject them to this same enforcement standard or mechanism that you have 3 offenses of this in a 12-month period. You're being added to the city council for revocation of your business license. Would that be an effective means of resolving that?
I think probably we need to consult with our environmental engineering department, their point of contact for all things ADAM, things like that. They've also handled some of the issues with the current issues over the years with the mom and pop tire shops, especially where you have that. So I believe we can't do any specific language or suggest that this needs to address that. But certainly we can take back and then come back to you on terms of options. What we have in this ordinance address the individual. And address tires that way. So that's a new addition in this version.
Where is that?
But that's not, maybe it is where the
We have
problem.
a both and problem. We have a both.
Yeah, I think a large portion of the problem is the guy who says, I'll take all these tires off of your small business here and I'll take them to the scrapyard. He loads them up and then he hauls them down the road and dumps them, wherever,
On vacant
city
piece of
property or
property.
whatever, collects his fee and moves on. That
At
exists.
the end of Hillcrest Road.
Yeah, everywhere. You name a spot, maybe outside of downtown, it exists. And I think we suffer from people, across the bay and everywhere else bringing their tires over here because we don't have an effective mechanism of enforcement. Maybe that we wouldn't have it in this case, but if this is the appropriate ordinance to do it, I'd like to get it in there.
Off the bat, it sounds like it might be a little more appropriate for the property maintenance section. But again, we can kind of look into that.
Many issues with scrap tire.
Yeah.
And it comes back to enforcement, where is the tire found? Is it on private property? Is it in the right of way? How much, how few, who's responsible? And coming up with an inclusive language to cover all those aspects can be difficult. Yes, the individual tire on private property is addressed in this ordinance. However, We know Public Works has issues with tires being dumped on right of way. Catching the person and prosecuting them can be difficult, extremely difficult. However, when we catch them, we have mechanisms, and you're looking at adjusting them to where we can enforce with this legislation. But what we did look at a while back was the mom and pops.
Yeah.
ADEM.
I'm saying all of them.
ADEM requirements and trying to enforce them at a local level. And that is being looked at with the legal department and Jamie Roberts, but nothing has been put into code yet.
So mine would be, I know it's nearly impossible to catch these people who are littering. I've went way down a rabbit hole trying to figure that out. But the people that are, say, habitual offenders of just having tires, that doesn't force them to do something with the tires. If we have the ability to address this for businesses, not just mom and pops, but every tire business, because it just to sort of match that ADM wording.
And some of the ADEM language is going to require a police officer. If you catch that person driving down the street with the pickup truck full of tires, you got to have the authority to pull them over.
Well,
and
no,
check
I'm
and see.
saying you
Yeah.
drive by
Yeah.
Joe's Tire Shop,
Mhm.
and there's 150 tires stacked up outside of Joe's Tire Shop. The city ought to have the authority or ability to go in there and say, "Hey, Joe's Tire Shop, you can only have 20 tires outside of your business at any one time,"
During,
which means that
during
all of-
business hours, yes. Because
Huh?
when their business is closed, they should all be inside.
yes, that's exactly right.
Yes.
That's now.
No, it should be.
But I think the challenge is though, I think ADEM regulates tire businesses and scrap tires, period. And I think if I recall correctly, y'all weren't able to move forward on an ordinance because ADEM already covers this. But we will look into it and see if there is a way to add anything. But I honestly believe that it is covered already.
You are correct. At a state level, ADEM is in control, and ADEM has to allow the city to enforce its requirements locally. And that discussion is ongoing.
But I'm saying as a municipal body, we have the ability to further restrict this. We could say, ADM, we want your support on your state law, on your enforcement. We're taking action on our own and saying we're going to enforce our tire law throughout the city. I think that's within our purview. I'm sure you'd have to look into the law further, but
It depends on how far ADEM has occupied the field on that.
I mean,
And you're,
Well, have.
we're operating from an assumption that most of the tires that are on the side of the road piled up are coming from the tire shops.
no, I'm just saying this is a piece of the puzzle, right? This is just a piece of the puzzle. But if we've got this wound open and it's been open since August and it fits in this category, let's put it in there, instead of closing this chapter and operating and then, having to readdress it some other time. And I'd be happy to provide.
And then somebody
Language.
said that it, someone, not sure who said, that it was there's already something in here that might be sufficient to tackle the tire issue.
This deals with scrap tire,
Okay,
but it's really on personal property.
It is not
okay, it's not business. Okay.
And it's really a definition of what a scrap tire is.
We do go into saying what is allowed to be dumped and not, so that's the first time. It hadn't been in here at all, and then Mark brilliantly last week told me about it.
And that's on page 5.
So that came up from a question that Gina had around scrap tires.
Yes. And Gina has been, yeah.
We can look, I have a lot of, I think ADEM believes it is their responsibility. Do they operate fully in that realm of following through? I think they have fewer staff people than we do.
Yeah, I've called them.
I've never seen an ADEM truck.
So what?
I've never seen an ADEM truck.
Well, I called him, I spoke to him, and I asked them to come investigate several of these small mom and pop shops. But their law is pretty lenient, very lenient. We can talk about something other than scrap
Well,
tires.
I want to follow up on scrap tires though, before we leave tires. And thank you for putting that in about the garbage cans. But the other problem is we've got to have a definitive answer to people when they call and say, does the city pick up old tires? Well, we have gone back and forth on this because for a while, we picked up 4 tires on somebody's right-of-way curb in front of their house. We would pick them up, 4 tires. It was a specific thing. Then it changed. So now we're not picking them up anymore. So what do people do with their scrap tires? Yeah, Keena, we did. We went through it. We did. It was 4 tires because we've done back and forth about old tires since I started on the council, which has been almost 20 years ago. So we've been dealing with it that entire time. So now people have old tires. They may be stacked up behind their house, which I have those all throughout my district. They stack up old tires behind their houses. Maybe they stay there, maybe they don't. They put them out on their curb. Nobody picks them up. They just sit there. The other problem is on city rights of way. They come out, they do a fabulous job of cutting the right of way. Cody Road looks beautiful, except for the scrap tires that are sitting on the right of way. So I get it that we don't want to pick up and have everybody and his brother go dump their tires. But at the same time, we can't leave these things sitting there and bringing blight to the community. So we've got to have a definitive policy on, do we pick up scrap tires on people's property and dispose of them properly somewhere? Because if we don't, they're going to pick those, they're either going to stay there forever, or somebody's going to take them and put them on a vacant piece of property somewhere, at the end of somebody's road. There has got to be a way to handle this without the city constantly saying, no, we don't do it. No, we don't. Because if we don't pick it up, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's just, that's the way blighted properties are. It's the way trash put on empty lots is. It just gets worse.
Several years ago, the state of Alabama passed the scrap tire law. Now, I don't know again what our role is between what the state does and an individual, what the city can do. But what I do know is that the scrap tire bill is you pay $4 or $2 a tire. I can't remember the number. And for every one of those tires, when you go to insert tire shop name here, they collect your 4 tires, and you are able to bring 4 tires to almost every single tire facility in Mobile, Alabama. We do not take scrap tires. There is a whole web page that's dedicated to what we do as scrap tires on the City of Mobile's webpage. And it is very, very clear. We do not accept them, period. But what we do is we have amnesty days, tire amnesty days, and we're working to have those 4 times a year. Right now, I think we're at 2, maybe 3. The next one is February 24th. So we are hosting those, and they are a way to all at one time. But again, the same rules apply. You're not allowed to have more than 6 tires on a vehicle that violates ADEM's rules. So you can only bring, because that means you're a tire
When you're
distributor.
picking them up and taking them.
Exactly. So you can bring up to 6 tires to our drop-off site per household in the city of Mobile, but that is all. We're working nonprofits to get those staffed, and then the city takes care of them. We have a grant through the county has a grant, and we get some recovery fee, but it's expensive for the city of Mobile to put those tires in, to get those tires disposed of as well. So that's a part of that process.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make this comment before I forget about it. It is expensive for the city of Mobile to pick that tire up off the side of the road and go dispose of it. But it's also very expensive to the people who live in an area, who live in a neighborhood, for their property values, for their well-being. It's very expensive for them to have to deal with it. What the things you suggested are tire amnesty days, people who are willing participants in doing the right thing. What Ms. Gregory's talking about is somebody who is not responsible, and they're riding down the road and they change their tire on the side of the road and they throw it on the side of the road. Now, somebody within the city should be picking that tire up. Whatever the expense is, they should be picking that tire up and getting it out of here without encouraging other people to come to our rights of ways and dropping their tires.
And before Mark gets going, you can tell this is a pet peeve, because like I said, I've dealt with this almost 20 years and the policy changes. So you can understand why, if I'm confused, why the people who live in the city are confused, because sometimes they pick them up, sometimes they don't. For the people who are at least willing to put those tires on their curb, I wish there was a way that we could pick them up some way, somehow, rather than saying, well, no, now you got to put them in your truck, then you got to take them down to Firestone or wherever. I know, but we've got to find an answer. And the more we say, no, we can't, the worse the problem's going to be. And as far as what Ben was talking about on rights of ways, that is our property, city property, that we need to pick up and clean up, no matter who put them there. I mean, we tell property owners that every day. Sorry, it's your property, you're responsible. So we have to pick them up. Cody Road's a great example. I'll use that because it's beautifully cut. Our mowing crews do a great job, but there are old tires sitting right there on the edge of the city's right of way. Big pile, just sits there. And I've turned it in, I've talked about it, but nothing happens. We go out, we pick up trash that's been dumped illegally on vacant properties. They may pick up some of the trash, but they leave the tires. So we have got to do a better job. There's got to be a resolution to this.
So anybody on my team could jump in if I start going down the wrong path. But here's how I understand it right now. And so one, I hate to say no, but it's really yes, but right. Like we could do anything in the city, but there's a cost to that, right? And so right now, we should be if it's something that we mow. Or we find something on the street or the right of way, easement that we mow. Our folks call that in, and then we're supposed to, identify that location. And then we have a separate trash truck that goes around and picks those up. We have to keep them separated from both garbage and trash because we have a contract that picks up in two separate formats, tires that replace off of city vehicles, and we have a contract for that. And then a separate contract that just does tires that we pick up off the right of way. The problem that comes that we have to do some research is that, if we start picking, everybody would love to put their tires out on the street because then they don't have to pay for their tires when they get them replaced. They'll say, no, I'll just put them in my pickup and throw them out for trash, which I think would be I'm not sure what the amount of that issue is. And if we have the capability to handle that. So I think that's creating a whole separate issue. But I mean, as far as I know, right, that's what we do. If it's on the right of way, we call it in if we see it, and then we schedule a pickup time that we're supposed to be picking those up. If they're in a waterway, if it's something that we could reach in a ditch, potentially with a knuckle boom, we pick it up. If not, then we work with Osprey or one of the other contractors to pick them up. Like I know there's a whole bunch that we're scheduled, but we can't do it until the spring when they can get in there. So,
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's a good idea to go pick up people's tires out of their trash pickup in their front yard. I think that's a terrible idea. I think it's one that's going to just make everybody give us their tires, and it's our collective problem as a people to deal with. When it's their problem, they need to deal with it. But if you get a 311 request for a tire that's in a right of way, I don't care if we cut the ditch or cut the grass or not, that tire should be picked up by the city of Mobile.
yeah, we pick those up.
All right. I just want to make sure that that's my position, is that it should be picked up, whether we cut the grass there or not. It should be picked up.
The other thing is communication, because so the right of ways are cut by contractors. The contractors are supposed to pick everything up. So it's the reporting of it. And when you hire people, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. So it's getting that information to the right folks so that we can come through and pick up.
Tires cannot go in the landfill, just so y'all know that.
Cody's cut by the city, though. Cities? Yep. Cody's cut by the contractors.
Anytime you see a tire that's out there, just call them 301 and then.
But if our folks are cutting it right away, if they're supposed to be reporting it, how many weeks is it gonna take before we get out there and pick them up?
And so that's true. I can't fix that until I know about it. Yeah. So I just need to know about it.
And
If we can come to an agreement on, okay, amnesty days, pick up, go to the park, fairgrounds, dump your tires, the city will come pick them up as an amnesty. We've got to have a way for people to get rid of their tires other than dumping them on vacant pieces of property that we're going to have to go clean up anyway. So there has to be a way to help people do what they're supposed to do, as well as making sure that the city rights of ways, if there's old tire on a city right of way, you better pick it up. I mean, don't just drive on by and say, yeah, look at that dump of tires, and keep going. Because I think that's what people see. They complain about that trash truck just went on by and that big old pile was still sitting there. And there may be lots of reasons, Mark, I get it. But still, there's a pile of tires sitting there or a pile of trash sitting there that our guys just drive right by. So we've got to have a better mechanism. And I know we're way off track, Casey, with this.
So that's, I think
You
that's
know.
education. That's one of the things I've been pushing, because what they're saying is, we're gonna pass it because that's not the truck that picks that up.
Right, I know,
And
yeah.
I was saying, this trash truck is, as he just explained, it's a whole nother truck that can't be contaminated. So, we agree with what you're saying.
Okay.
We just gotta figure out a better
You cannot put
way
a
to
tire in the landfill. If they burn at a rate that is unconscionable and
Okay.
whatever, and a temperature that's terrible, so you can't, they have to be shredded, there's a whole bunch, that's why they always have to be separated, so it's always.
Okay. Well,
But
like I
we-
said,
We do hear you.
yeah, it's just that we get so many complaints and I see it all over the district and I report it and all these things and nothing ever seems to change. So we get frustrated.
I think-
So unfortunately, y'all are hearing that.
I think we can also be really clear.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it internally, but what we can do on that entire webpage is say, we will host X number of tire
Okay.
amnesty days. These will be the locations and they will happen, in this month, this month, and this month. So we
Yeah.
can at least give some.
I think that would-
Well, and what else? Yeah. Well, what else will help too? Because we have so many volunteers who go out and they do cleanups. I had a group over on 80 Road who did cleanups all the time. They would take their trailer around and pick up all the old tires, and they had to deal with one of the stations, I forget which one, Firestone or somebody, where they could take them. But now that's not in existence. And so they don't know what to do with the tires. When they do a cleanup, they call me, well, what do we do with the tires? I don't know. And then we had some master gardeners who were volunteering and going around working in all these city parks. They cleaned up a whole lot of trash and there were tires. And they were trying to find out, well, what do we do with the tires? I said, I don't know. Let me check. And then I was told 4 tires, that they'll pick them up. I'm like, okay. So I told them, they said, nope. They were never picked up. So it's been really confusing to get a clear message on what we do, what we don't do, and to help people understand why maybe they shouldn't be putting their tires on the side of the road, all that sort of thing. And then getting our folks to call in when they do see the tires out there so that we can get a special truck to come by and pick them up. Let's just do a better job of getting the word down to the troops, because we all talk about it, but they may not hear it or understand, what they're supposed to do, so that we can just make life a little better on the scrap tire side of things.
You can just do what I do. I'm gonna start dropping my tires off at Ben's house. It's his problem.
At Ben's house?
Yeah, be his problem. I'm gonna stack them up right next to his house.
Mr. Chairman, so what does this ordinance do? All right, it establishes new protocol for enforcement for litter. It establishes a new protocol for where carts can be, can't be, lids closed or open. It also specifies what the city will pick up further. And it's now reducing the size of some of the limbs and stuff that are picked up, which I don't necessarily love that idea. I understand we're trying to be a little bit more efficient. There's a lot of good that's happening in this ordinance. I know it's been taken since August to get to this point. Y'all could be patient with us. This is a big one that affects a lot of people. Doesn't sound like we've got it all worked out here today, but here's one here that's not quite worked out, but 25-26 on page 12, and this is a minor change, but I'm sure there are some of those that still exist. Regarding yard, garage sale, and other unauthorized temporary signs, it shall be a violation of this article to place any signs or trees or utility poles in the city rights of ways without exception. And then the next item, it says exception. I would say strike that. But I've read through this initially, and I sat down with Casey and Mark, and we went through this thing with a fine-tooth comb, and it's changed a little bit since then. And I don't know all the changes, but I think this is worthwhile to continue to try to get right, maybe exploring those enforcement mechanisms as I suggested, maybe even adding some additional language about the tires that are out there and how we can work with ADM further to do it. I don't think this is worth throwing out as some suggested, just do away with it and move on and keep operating as we have been. So I think the things that's been raised today, we can work out, Councilman Woods.
I had just a couple. One thing. We legal hasn't on your side, city legal hasn't reviewed this yet, have they? They have, because we might want to get them to go back through it, because looking at some of these things, you know, it raises some Zogby questions. So that might be a good thing, just to let them look through it one more time, since that's been recent topic of discussion amongst them.
But for the record, they don't raise an issue with our lawyer.
It doesn't raise an issue with our lawyer, but. And then one other thing, just thinking about practice, on page 5, household trash 26.6 going to B quantity. You know, one under that spells it out, but then 2, the maximum collection limit. And I know that, you know, we facilitate, the city facilitates picking up, you know, oversized piles. Can we put like a time frame and kind of further delve down into that a little bit? I know from a neighbor that I've had, he, you know, done it once, worked very well, and then, you know, had a larger pile another time. Well, ended up he put it out too early, or the city wasn't notified. I think he put it out there 48 hours, just like normal. And, you know, his intent was to call, but before he could call, you know, he got a violation or a notice. So if we could we put like something like, and also too, I don't know, like, is 48 hours enough time to give our crews, like, hey, you got the okay to pick up that? At what point does the citizen need to call and get everything right before it comes a ticket or a violation?
You want it specifically with oversized loads?
Just
Being C right here where it says 24 or 48 hours?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I guess it's the ticketing aspect, I guess. At what point, you know, obviously 48 hours, it's legal to put all your stuff out there. But if it's an oversized load, and your guys deem it oversized load, how do they know that the citizen called in to pay the fee? Yeah, to get the special exemption fee.
So the question is, just so I'm clear,
Yeah.
if somebody puts out an oversized load that's say 48 hours within the normal
within
time
normal
frame,
trash
right?
day,
But it's
yeah.
an oversized load. Do they get ticketed before actual trash day, or is it after trash day? Is that kind of the?
That's not what he's asking.
Yeah.
Oh.
What he's asking is, we know this is an oversized load. He calls in, trash day is passed. He's called in to say, come and get this. If it is past the 48 or within the 48 hours, how do someone know not to find them because they're calling in the order? Can you get it in that 48 hours time so that they don't get fined?
Right. Yeah. Like, and I would assume, I don't know what the special load is or whatever. I don't know. So I'm every other Thursday. Well, if I get picked up on Thursday the 1st, and then, you know, next week, that next Thursday, it's not my regular trash pickup day. I guess my question is, number one, can I call and get somebody to come pick it up and pay a fee? I'm understanding, I'm reading this as no, that it's got to be, you know, your oversized load has to be picked up on regular trash schedule, because I wouldn't think that the city would be sending people out all over on trash time. But then also, with it being 48 hours legally before you could put that pile up, at what point does the citizen need to call? Or when does it become too late for them to call to get it picked up on their trash day?
You want to explain how we do it now?
Okay, the way we do the PayPals, once citizens know they have a PayPal, if they call in, we will send a supervisor crew chief out there to assess the payment.
Okay.
They also coordinate with our EPO officers. The EPO officers go out there and see a PayPal. They would call the supervisor or the crew chief to see has this been called in. If not, they don't get ticketed immediately. They just get an NOV. That's a notice of violation.
Do we pick it up then? If they're getting the NOV, we pick up their large?
We still will
pile?
pick it up once
Okay.
they pay for it.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so just to be clear, there's been a couple times, you know, again, we've made mistakes, right? Like, so I found a couple times and I try to resolve it pretty
Yeah.
quick. That
No, he totally
we give
didn't
an
call
NOV.
in. So
Yeah, we get an NOV and it happens to be already coordinated, but then we pull it, you know, if somebody calls.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay. I got you. All right. Just making sure that, that, you know, that it's easily explainable to people, like, hey, I got a big pile. Yeah, just call the city. And if you get a violation and you've already paid, then it'll be okay.
How about
Thanks.
I have a couple of questions on the not collectible as part of the household trash. We have all the lists down there. Where it says construction debris, including home improvement projects. So anything like if somebody just does home improvement stuff in their house and they pull up the carpet, so we're not going to pick up anything that you're doing in your house. That's not commercial, but you're just doing it yourself.
How do you determine if it's been self-served?
Well, that's my question. How do you determine if it's commercial or if it's just yours? So we're not going to pick up anything. No carpeting, no nothing. Okay. Yeah, that was a big thing because we talk about commercial business a lot. And so that's why I was saying, if you're doing it yourself, you're not exempt from, okay.
We got
And
about,
any tree removal. So if you remove a tree yourself, if I go up and I cut down a tree, I'm not able to put it in my yard for pickup. Because it says
If it's below these 12
private companies hired to remove trees or branches. How do we know if it was a commercial company or if I did it myself?
It's the size.
Well, but
We might be able to tweak the wording. on that,
yeah,
and that
because,
one.
people are going to say, hey, I did it myself,
I thought
Even
I
though
must have said
it was like I would doubt
So-
it because it takes, all kinds of
Ju-
equipment to
just-
do it.
So a
It's,
couple notes on that one.
6.
If we know, so here's the problem, right? If we know a commercial tree service took down a tree, we're not supposed to be taking it because,
well,
then
you're doing
basically
the
they're
work for
making
them,
money
yeah.
off of city funds.
Oh, I get it. It's pretty obvious when a commercial company does it. But if somebody should say, hey, I did it myself,
That's right.
how do we?
We don't. And then at that
Yeah.
point, it's just going to transfer over to the amount that we'd pick up, which is the 12-inch diameter and then the
Okay,
length.
so you say,
And
well,
so-
this is too big a pile. We're not
Yeah.
going to pick it up. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and so, we would only use that if we knew, like,
Yeah.
if somebody went out there and have evidence, they saw a commercial company cutting down a tree
Yeah,
and then
well-
they said it's theirs. Well, we have evidence and sorry, we can't
Right,
take it.
yeah,
So
okay.
But it's still within the parameters
Of the size.
Two of the size.
Yeah, okay.
that's right.
Yeah, okay.
so we have 3 minutes left. Anything else?
Oh, I think that's probably enough for now. No, really, Casey and your team, thank you for tackling this. I mean, I think you were thrown in and said, fix it. And it has been quite the job. So you have done a tremendous amount of work on this and thank you for clearing up as much as you have been able to do. Just tweaks here and there and, getting over our pet peeves with issues. So, that you can't really do anything about necessarily. So let's just go back and look at these areas and make some changes and, we'll just come back to it. So I think we're getting there,
Can you all lay out the timeline you would like this completed by, so that we can finish this?
Well, I
Mhm.
can comment. Just on generally the comments I've heard throughout since August, I don't know that there's 5 for this, right? I think it would behoove your department and everybody involved to try to whip those votes or see where you stand with them. I mean, I can't go to 4 other members and say, where you at on this, and try to get the vote. So I think maybe there's some effort needed to have some individual meetings or conversations with everybody to figure out, where it actually stands.
Well, I think
So
if-
time frame wise, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know time frame because I don't know that there are the votes there currently.
Well,
I would be willing
Yeah.
with these changes.
Yeah.
That I discussed today. I'd be willing to go along, but I don't know about
Yeah.
everybody else.
I think if we go back and look at some of the things that we talked about with the downtown issues, some of the other things that we've talked about, I know Joel's issues. If we get all those resolved, then I don't know why we couldn't expect it to, be approved. So I think it's just going back and putting those changes in and, figuring out what those are.
And let city legal review it.
Yeah, well, and city legal and everybody. Get all the attorneys on board.
I would say it comes back up next week. I mean,
Just lay it over for,
if we lay it over for 2 weeks,
well, at least, I don't know how long it's going to take.
okay.
I see keep letting it poke its head up, Week after
Well,
week.
we don't want it to keep coming up so often that we're not ready and then you've got to lay it over
Then you
again
gotta
and
lay it over
again.
again.
So give it enough time to, really.
Okay, I guess maybe the intention will be, again, missing two folks that had some questions. I did my best to try to convey them. I guess maybe the intent right now would be to kick it for between 2 to 4 weeks, for 30, up to 30 days.
Yeah, probably.
And then, I think 30 days would be fair and we could get answers and get whatever, especially if y'all are willing to sit down with some folks, get an answer then. So.
I have reached out to many of you individually multiple times without any response. So I don't mean to be a brat, but I'm really wondering, I would love your advice on how to get a return.
Well, we could vote it and it'd just be voted down. I mean, that's the other option, you know?
That's not my goal. I want to understand what's wrong. Please don't, I'm not being, you gave us an hour and a half. I mean, and we were grateful for advice on how.
Well, I think usually everybody gets here between 9. We have pre-council 9 on Tuesdays, 10:30 on Tuesdays, and usually, I mean, for the most part, most of the council members are here. So I think I would probably go shopping then. So.
Probably better to try to trap them, because email is easy to see and move on, scroll through. So, but those that have specific issues, ones you need to hit, because after what we talked about today, I think, my scrap tire is probably resolved and bins are probably resolved. So just making those changes. And then of course with Elizabeth and Carol and them, we just want to make sure that we take care of the downtown district, and because they're different than, everybody else. So they're different, unique children, but, we just have to make sure that everybody's specific needs are met. And I think, we'll get there, but get William and Joel and see, really where their heads are, what they were thinking.
Yep. All right. With that, we'll close her up. So.
All right, thank you.
Entitlement meeting, by the way, if anybody was staying for that, we're going to have to cancel it.
You weren't entitled to